Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying.
Okay, there we go. All right, we will start our agenda meeting. We'll start with roll call, please, Mrs. Ford.
Acting Chair Robinson,
Here.
Mrs. Black,
Here.
Mr. Connor,
Here.
Mr. Groan,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Mr. King,
Here.
Mr. Perez,
Here.
Mrs. Faye Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Thurman,
Here.
Dr. Wingate, and Superintendent Dr. Robertson.
Here.
All right, and we will move into the election of officers. So we'll elect chair, vice chair, and I'm stating this for the new board members. We'll elect chair, vice chair, and we will appoint a TSBA rep tonight, and then I think we'll discuss committees. So just an FYI. Do we have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to nominate Tiffany Robinson.
I second that.
Call for the vote, please.
For discussion.
Oh, or discussion, whichever. Or any other nominations, thank you.
Yo, you're just trying to grab that.
Trying to fly through that.
No one's discussing.
Okay, if there's no discussion or no nominations, then I greatly appreciate the nomination. We'll call for the vote. Oh, or unless Mr.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Great, thank you.
Oh, we're going to roll call?
Yeah, that's what you said.
I thought you said we didn't have to.
Do we have to go roll call?
Yeah, I think we have to vote, don't we?
Yeah.
We don't have to
surely.
vote?
You can either vote, or you can do a acclamation.
Oh,
I don't know.
But
sure.
But go ahead and do the roll call.
Let's do a roll call.
Okay.
Mrs. Black,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Groan,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Faye Robinson, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
and Mrs. Tiffany Robinson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. Okay, do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Yes. I would like to nominate Joe Smith, please.
Okay, great,
Second.
great. Do we have any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Jones.
Do we have a second?
I second that. Second that, but I like both of them.
I do too.
So how's that happen? Because that's what's weird. I want to pick favorite. But there's two nominations.
Yeah, there are two nominations, and unless there's a third, you just go through and make your preference.
Okay.
Are we ready? Mrs. Black? Which one do you choose?
Mrs. Jones.
Okay, Mr. Connor,
Mrs. Jones.
Mr. Brown,
Mr. Smith.
Mrs. Jones,
Mrs. Jones.
Mr. King,
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Perez,
Mrs. Jones.
Mrs. Faye Robinson,
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith,
Mr. Smith.
Mrs. Thurman,
Mr. Smith.
and Mrs. Robinson.
Mrs. Jones.
We have time.
Okay.
It's a tie.
Mr. Wingate is not here.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way to do this, yeah.
We have time.
What do you,
Discussion and revote.
okay. All right.
And I would suggest that if there's a stalemate, then, you can defer this one to the next meeting. You have to have a chair.
Yeah.
And we have one, so that gives us some latitude. But I would say discussion, one more vote, and if you're still at a stalemate, then we just hope that you are okay for another 30 days.
I'm comfortable with whatever the board wants to do. I maybe would just suggest that we move in, like, just hold tight until the next board meeting, unless,
I would be okay with
unless,
that.
okay,
Fine with that.
Pleasure of the chair.
okay. Great, we will do that. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we'll have an approval of the agenda.
Tennessee Legislative Network.
That's right, thank you so much. Okay, so every year we select a representative to be our liaison with TSBA. Do we actually vote on that, or is it just it's just like an appointment, correct?
No, it's a
It is-
nomination and a
It's a
vote.
nomination.
Yeah.
Okay,
vote.
okay, all right. Do I have a motion for,
I think that somebody needs to understand what that is. These new board
Yes,
members
agreed.
may not understand
Thank
even
you.
what this is.
Thank you.
Explain what that is.
Yep. So I've been the representative before, and basically I participated with TSBA on weekly calls around state legislation and what's going on the state level. It's incredibly informative. Truthfully, I think it's a great opportunity for a new board member to really understand what's going on the state level. It basically lasts from right now through April or May, I believe. So it does take up a little bit of time, but it's a great way to just really understand what's going on the state level. And then you report back to the board. Typically, I would send out an email every week. Jenny did a great job whenever she was our representative as well, so.
But doesn't it require going to Nashville?
It does
sometimes?
not require
Does
going to
not
Nashville.
require.
Nope,
It used
just
to.
conference
Doesn't
calls.
anymore, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just conference calls, so, yep. Does anyone have an interest?
I do.
Okay.
I
Mr.
do.
Grill? Okay, and Mr. Connor? Okay. All right. This is great. Okay. All right, so do we have a nomination?
I will nominate Larry.
Okay,
I nominate Ben Connor.
okay. All right, and we need seconds.
I'll second Ben.
I have a second for Ben.
Okay, who nominated Ben?
Mrs. Black, oh,
And
Mrs.
Mrs.
Jones,
Jones.
yeah.
Seconded by Plant.
Yep,
Seconded by
that was me.
Okay. We have a second for
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown, or no?
Two, Mrs. Black and
Okay. No, Mr. Connor. Mr. Connor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Connor and Mrs. Bell, yes, or Mr. Bell, yes. Okay, so if there's not a second, then we'll do a vote for Mrs. Black.
Mr. Connor.
Mr. Connor.
Mr. Connor.
I seconded Ben.
But you're gonna do a great job.
I am really hungry.
So we'll vote for
I
that.
literally almost said Jillian, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
call for the vote.
Mrs. Black,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Fay Robinson,
No.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
No.
Mrs. Tiffany Robinson.
Yes,
Passes.
okay. All right, good deal. And the conversation around committees, I thought we'd just keep it short today, but ultimately, we do have committees that every board member serves on. In the past, some of those committees have been very active. I would say that over the last 2 years, our committees have probably not met as much as they could, primarily due to just the turbulence of meeting times and COVID and whatnot. So I would like by next month for us to, I'll send an email out to everyone with what committees you might be interested in. You can think it over, happy to answer questions for any newbies on what that's looked like in the past. And in October, we'll assign committees. So we don't vote on committees, but we'll assign a committee chair and everyone to a committee. But my hope is that these committees will be active because it is important work, and we'll go from there. Okay. Moving on and we'll do the approval of the agenda next.
We have to have
At
the
the flag.
amendments. We have
Yes,
to read
thank
the
you.
amendments.
Yep, so we have an amendment, we have multiple amendments to the agenda. So under the consent agenda, under item D, item 1, bids and contracts, we have an amendment for item 1A. It's request approval of RFP 2022-2021 temporary staffing services. Item F, 1D, request approval of contract with Securely through authorized reseller CDWG. And then under item 2, Chief Strategy Officer, we have the approval to renew the agreement between HCS and Stellar Therapy Services. And and that's it for the consent agenda. And we do have something under board matters. Item 1G, Board Policy 1.404 has been added, appearances before the board. And you should have that amended policy in your packets, in your tree of papers in front of you.
But that's not under consent agenda.
It's not, it's under board.
Non-board members, okay. Just want to make sure.
I'd like to pull 71A for discussion.
You got it.
What is it?
71A.
Oh, we're not.
You gotta-
Yeah,
Yeah,
we need
approve
to
Oh,
approve the
that's on
agenda
the
first.
consent agenda.
It's a consent agenda.
That's consent
Yeah,
agenda.
we're not there
Yeah, we
yet.
don't-
Whenever we get to the consent.
Gotcha.
Yep. So go ahead and do roll call, or, vote.
We need a motion.
Do you have a
I
motion?
move.
Thank you.
Second.
Who seconded? Thank you. Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Groan?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Faye Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairwoman Robinson?
Yes, thank you.
New light.
Okay, we'll move to our Pledge of the Flag and meditation. We have Dr. Julia Gaines and Carmen Beller, interim principals of CSAS Upper School. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome. Will we please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Robertson, school board, and tonight's attendees. My name is Carmen Veller, and I'm grateful to be here with my coworker, Dr. Julia Gaines, as representatives of CSAS Upper. Thank you for allowing us to share in this evening. Thank you, Julia, for allowing me to share a love letter to the power of education. I really appreciate you. I'm a proud member of Patriot Nation, starting my 30th year at CSAS, kind of unheard of to be in a building that long. From an English teacher to acting middle school principal, I've loved my time with my CSAS family. It's a career that has fed my spirit, filled my heart, and challenged my thinking. Every day I spend time with curious, delightfully loud middle schoolers with really awkward conversations. Some of them are children of my former students, and that cycle has allowed me to form a family that spans decades and cross communities. But as I begin my third decade as a Patriot, I want to share how powerful my own teachers were. I'm really nervous. My parents, my first teachers, shared my future with teachers at McBrien Elementary, Anna B. Lacey Elementary, Eastridge Junior High, and Eastridge High School. I didn't attend preschool, so I was enamored of my first teacher. Mrs. Stott, Connie Stott, my kindergarten teacher, looked all over Chattanooga for a book for Circle Time with a protagonist named Carmen. Sesame Street's diversity that was promised in the 70s hadn't quite made it to McBrien, and so I was surrounded by the Michelles and Shannons of my generation. Brenda Brown, my third grade teacher, an incredibly strong person, introduced me to big girl notebook paper, taught me to write in cursive, and shared Where the Red Fern Grows with me. She cried near the end of the book, and I discovered the power of literature. Gloria Barr and Harriet Harris taught me to love words like portmanteau and valise, and admittedly made me a very strange little girl, and likely a stranger woman. David Bell taught me to take up for myself in 7th grade, and his praise in social studies was hard-won. He taught me to be proud of mistakes as they show change. He knew perfection was often tied to no risk. Donna Summerlin, my high school English teacher for 3 years, helped me to hone my words to develop my voice. And with that developing voice, Cheryl DeVivo made history come alive for me. She taught me how to write to my legislators, a practice I do regularly, much to the chagrin of my family. Finally, Beatrice Ingram, my Latin and Spanish teacher for 6 years, showed me other cultures and other views in my homogeneous school environment. These teachers were well-educated, well-traveled, and they opened my eyes to opportunities that existed outside my small Eastridge view. Because of Mom and Daddy's grit, and it's Daddy, and belief in me, I am a first-generation college goer. Their hard work and their partnership with my teachers helped me forge a path into a future that has earned me a living, but more importantly, it has given me a life. So I stand on the shoulders of giants and thank those who inspired and encouraged my education, my very loud voice, my thinking, and my service. And I, like so many other educators, have worked my entire career to do the same, for me, using literature as a lens to understanding others and myself. And it is in honor of my mother, who made me write a thank you letter every single Saturday, which I still do, that I find it appropriate to spend my time here today thanking those who believed in the power of the future, who planted seeds they never saw grow. The words in the pledge, liberty and justice for all, is possible only through the work of educators who know that an education means access and equity. As in my past, I am grateful to be surrounded by teachers every day who invest themselves so completely in our students and ultimately in our future as a district and as a nation. Thank you all tonight, and thank you especially to all teachers.
Miss Tatum, can you come back to the podium, please?
It's gonna be bad, y'all.
It's not. I am a little bit emotional because Miss Carmen Taylor, K. Tatum, now Mrs. Carmen Beller, was my 9th grade English literature teacher at CSAS. And when she talked about, in her letter, exposing students to literature that helped them to see the world in different spaces, it really touched home to me because in most recent months, I have been critiqued for what she taught me to do. And I believe that I am all that I am because of teachers like Miss Tatum and Miss Varner and so many others that come through here, Coach Bowles, Jenny Oliver, that taught me to have a voice like your teacher taught you. And so I want to say thank you for that because because you were bold enough to teach us things and help us to not be cynical. And Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
And other stories that we read. But I want to say thank you for that because while others may not see the value in that, every day I live my life and do the work that I do, I find value in what you taught me in that 9th grade English class.
Thank you, Chris. I love you. Thank you for letting me see a seed bloom. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. We'll go into our board member disclaimer statement. We'll start with Mr. Groen.
I declare that I have a spouse who works for the school system as a substitute, and that the board's vote on budget policies may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Me next. Move it down the line. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and the board's vote on budget or policies may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget or policies may have an effect on my relative, will not have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget, policies, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a spouse and sisters-in-law who work for the school system and that the board's vote on all matters may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a family member who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
This does not apply to me because I have no relatives in the school system, but I will always vote for the very best of the school system.
I declare that I have a family member who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on all matters may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Is that it? Okay, great. We are free and clear. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Second? Are there any items to pull? Marco, second. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to pull
Just speak into the mic.
I'd like to pull 71A.
Okay. Mrs. Black, pull 7D1A. Are there any other items?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, 7E, is that the one she pulled? Did she
Yeah,
say
that's the
E1A?
same one.
E1A.
No, but it's confusing.
Yep.
It is,
So
yeah.
she
Okay,
pulled D.
okay, I'm saying E, okay.
Okay.
E1A.
E1A.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you.
No, it's, I meant E. I'm sorry. I wrote down E. I wrote-
So it's the same one, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make sure.
Okay.
That's what you was putting in? E1A.
Okay. Is there anything else to be pulled? Great. Feel free to, you'll start with questions? No, sorry.
We vote on the
We
rest
gotta
of it.
vote. Let's call for a vote.
Mrs. Black,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Faye Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairwoman Robinson.
Yes. Now we will have discussion. Mrs. Black.
My question revolved around Miss Teppenpaugh. Is that how I say her name? What she spoke about around the sub-pay inequities. Is that issue something that we can address in this contract, or is that a board policy that we need to address separately?
This is the
That's a different contract.
no, this is the contract, is it not, for the subs right here, the ESS contract?
Are we talking, what,
I'm
I
looking
thought
at
you
something
said
different.
E1A.
We did.
Yeah.
Seven
It's
E1A.
under-
No,
it's
it's
the one that's
D1A is the
amended.
temporary
Different on
staff.
Are
this
you,
than it is on
I think
this.
maybe you meant D, actually.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is
All right.
D1A is temporary
Okay,
staffing.
so
You're
we
smart,
really
Sue.
do need to pull 7D1A and 7E1A.
It says E on
It
here.
says E on here.
But it's A on this one.
Oh, yeah, online it's
Item
different.
E, it say E, item 1A, request approval of RFP 2021.
Okay, okay, let's do this.
It-
Jill, tell us what,
I-
just say the name of the item.
I got it. So
You
you're
know
talking
what I'm
about the RFP.
D1A, it's about the temporary staff.
Yeah. but it's
So,
different on this other one 'cause it was seven.
No, we would have to get HR to work with ESS. I think that we take this back to Ms. Teppenpaugh's concerns, take it to them. This is basically separating, and I'm looking back correct me if I'm wrong, but separating ESS's responsibilities to provide subs, teacher substitutes,
Okay.
and then the other company will work to provide classified, like secretaries, cafeteria workers,
Yeah.
other things. So it's separating those responsibilities. What we need to do is to go back and talk to them about how do we adjust those bonuses, and we don't have to do that through this policy. We can do that through a procedure on the back end.
Okay, so it falls under the classified and not the temporary staff contract, even though subs are temporary staff.
No, we will work with the vendor, ESS, but it doesn't have to be done on this vote right here. This is
Okay.
just saying that we're gonna use them to provide substitute
Right.
teachers. And then the pay and the bonuses, we can work with them on the back end on that.
Okay.
Okay, so the pay is not in, that's not gonna affect this contract. I started to say pay's part of the contract, so,
What I'm saying is we can go, and Scott, maybe this is a question for you, we can go back after this is approved and negotiate the price with them. It's more of a procedure around how the bonus is
No.
put out there.
Oh,
Her concern was like the discrepancy between 3 days worked versus 5 days worked
Right.
and the separate classifications
Yeah.
for the bonuses.
Right.
To answer the board's question, honestly, it's complicated enough that we may have to come back and do an amendment to this contract. But honestly, right now, I'm not sure that I can give you that answer. What I can tell you is I'll talk with the administration we'll look at the cost structure that ESS is gonna be using. And the reason I say it's complicated is because you can fix one problem and create 3 others. So rather than trying to put something together with baling wire and duct tape tonight, let's have a measured approach. If we can do it through an administrative fiat, we will, and if we need to come back and do an addendum to the contract, we will.
Do we need to table it and just come back?
I think you need to have them under contract now because they're providing services now. And in my view, honestly, is, and the most important piece of this is an understanding of legal responsibility, what they do, what we do. So my recommendation is respectfully, the board ratify this, and then we study the issues that have been brought to our attention.
The bonus, again, the bonus is an addendum to the contract, so that can always be brought back.
So which gets me back to,
Right.
if we can fix it through administrative fiat, we will, and if we have to come back and do an addendum, we will.
Oh, are you through, Jill? Can I make a statement
Yes,
right here?
Mrs. Thurman.
At the end of this, she didn't get to read all the way through. If you notice at the end, she said to consider to relook at the 5-day requirement and place every sub on the same 3-day requirement for bonus pay. I don't know why there's a difference in there anyway, why they're both not the same. I think that's something we need to definitely look at, and she was told that that was done by us, that we're the ones that made that, we differentiated between the two, and I'd like to know the rationale for that, not real sure why that would be anyway, but that's something that we really do need to look at, I think. And if we can fix that with an amendment or addendum or whatever it has to be, okay, but I don't want it to pass without us addressing this.
I want to make sure that we address it and figure out how to address it.
Okay. Mrs. Jones?
So for clarity, Scott, what you're saying is if we vote on this contract here, no, let me start over. This contract here has an addendum, and in the addendum, the bonus is discussed, or no? Did I misunderstand that?
That's correct.
So it's this contract plus an addendum?
This contract has exhibits to it that lay out the pay structure.
Right, so I was looking at that.
Bonus is in an addendum.
Okay, so upon voting on this, are we voting for this and the addendums as they currently are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if we come back and have a discussion about the particular addendums, exhibits in the addendum, that will be addressing the concerns we have about the 3-day versus 5-day, regular versus permanent, and we take this back to ESS, are they obligated to hear us out? Or are we just kind of stuck at the contract that we've agreed to with the current addendum?
Well, they're a business partner. I think out of enlightened self-interest, they're going to fix this.
Okay.
I mean, when you get right down to it, we are a substantial customer, and frankly, I think it behooves them to be concerned about this problem as well.
Okay.
So rather than speaking to what we can do to them, I think what the better way to look at it is, this has been brought to our attention as a legitimate issue. I don't think everyone who can address this issue is in here in this
Gotcha.
room right
Okay.
now. And frankly, even if they were, I don't know that I think this is sort of an unwieldy body to try to resolve something that may actually require a little bit of finessing.
Gotcha.
However, from my perspective, I know these folks are already in the schools now. We do not have a legal relationship with them.
Gotcha.
Absent this contract. So my recommendation is let's ratify it, and then we let the administration work with ESS to address some of these legitimate issues. And if it can be addressed either by some sort of administrative memorandum of understanding, great. It may very well be that we need to bring an addendum back to this board to amend the contract. Whichever way we need to do it, we will do it.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Perez?
So I was going to ask a more general question regarding substitute temporary staffing, because I know that last year, as everybody and everywhere, there were challenges to finding sufficient staff in certain places. Has it improved? Are we doing better on that? just in general. You can step up, Dr. Brown, now that you're in that role.
Yeah, so.
We'll turn on the mic.
Mr. Perez, to answer your question, yes, this year we've been fortunate, right? I would say that when we went through the process of trying to find the vendor, ultimately we won a 95% fill rate. Across the nation, that's just unheard of right now, right? 95%, everyone's struggling. But I would say for the month of August, any sub or any absence that was submitted for 12 hours or more, we'll be giving that much time, 12 to 24 hours. We're sitting at a 93% fill rate. So, you know, the month of August in general was about 78, 79%, but that is a vast improvement over last year where we was averaging 66%. So right now, the things that ESS is doing with our recruiting, teachers submitting on time, we were able to fill more classrooms at this time.
Okay. The second question on that, again, we're talking about equitable pay in many ways, and a non-degreed half day. What's a half day? 3 hours, 4 hours? Like 8 to 12?
Yes, sir, 3.5. So our subs work 7 hours a day.
So $29.99 pay rate, again, take-home pay. So just to keep that in mind, because when we talk about amending the contract, I'm assuming, if we come back at one point request that they do different pay structures, it's going to be on us. Like, they're not going to come back and say, sure, and we'll eat up the cost. They'll come back to us and say, sure, we'll add that to that. So as we are doing so much compensation conversation, I, Marco Perez, member of this board, believe that even if you're non-degreed, $30 for half a day of work could be improved upon in many ways, because I think it'll be incredibly hard to find an individual to pay for their gas, to pay for someone to cover their kids that day, knowing that they're going to walk away with the cost of what's usually 1 or 2 hours of childcare, right? So anyways, all that to say, yes, as part of our conversation of compensation opportunities, I would encourage you to look at that. And I mean, I think our community as a whole, I think our commission as a whole, I think all of us need to just create an awareness that things cost more these days and that we want to compensate people for that. So
I would like to add one thing, and hopefully, just so as the board is considering, I would say that the pay rate or the daily rate is the issue, and not so much the bonus. And just so you'll know that a permanent sub, their daily rate is already higher than a non-degree sub. So at the end
but
of the
it's
day,
an issue of we're not compensating enough, so we have to create bonuses in order to reach that compensation. So I'd say let's just compensate everybody better. But that's me. I'm going to leave that to you. I do want to point out, Dr. Brown, welcome. This is your first time to the board.
Thanks, sir.
as the role that you play in HR. So thank you very much, and we appreciate your service and your work. So.
Okay. Are there any more comments? No? Okay. All right, so I think what we need to do is put it back on the agenda.
Move to approve.
Move to approve, yeah. So do I have a motion to approve this item going back on the agenda?
I make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, call for the vote.
Mrs. Black,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Groan,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Faye Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairwoman Robinson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move into board matters.
No, I believe now.
Did we have another item?
Ms. Thurman, was your item this one?
It's the same one.
It was the same one.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was the same one. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I haven't been here that long, but, okay, thought I had that one right. All right. Okay, now we'll move into board matters. We have, yeah, hold on.
no, we
Yeah.
vote on each one.
Okay, we'll have first item, executive committee grant approvals, federal programs. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We're not in approval mode there.
Sorry?
Those don't have to be approved.
The
Those
grants
are not
don't
for
have to be
approval.
Oh, since when?
We just gonna talk about it?
We're good for next page.
It's board members. Yeah, did I
To
not
all
have
new
it?
board members, we will have
Number
this
8.
down to an art.
reject this one.
Yeah, but we did. Sure.
Right.
It says grant
Yeah, 'cause this
approval.
is done. We don't have to. That's part of the consent.
No, it's not.
Board
No,
matters?
Board
it's
matters?
under board
No,
matters.
board matters
No,
item
but is
A.
that under
It's
board matters?
It is
A1.
Executive committee grant approvals federal program.
I'm sorry. It's ratification. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Nope, all good. It's just one of those wacky days, you know,
Yeah,
like
we're off totally.
We're
super
off.
off. We're gonna have our stuff together next month. We're good. Okay, so we have a motion to approve. We have a
I'm
second.
sorry. And
Yes, no worries.
Lost. So who motion?
So I think Mr.
I
Perez
move
give,
to approve.
and then Kurtz a second, I believe.
Fred said, did you second?
Okay, I apologize.
Whatever I need to do, yes.
Okay.
It's usually under
We are
consent.
right, I'm sorry, we are right here under board matters, and we physically.
I'm not sure why. You went,
Well, A, B, A, B.
Mr. Chair, just for point of clarification.
oh, no, it does not have to be approved. I'm sorry.
Hold on, there's confusion.
Time out.
The officials are discussing.
It's with the resolution.
Yeah, each policy, yes, we do. Yeah. Yeah. But we're gonna, well, first we need to approve item A, grants. I don't know that grants.
No, you're not officially.
No, that was true. So, Madam Chair, it looks like that these are on here for information only because they're grants.
Hold on. We've got, can you speak up into the mic?
Yes,
please?
so it looks like these were on here for the board's information.
Okay.
That it was advising you, for example, the first one is grant requests in excess of 100,000 do not obligate the board to provide funds. So it's just advising you that those have been applied for.
And this is executive committee.
So this
grant
is just an FYI that the executive committee approved these departments to apply for these grants. It doesn't commit any funds from the school district, and basically what happens, we get them, then you will have to approve accepting. the
Yeah, they've
grant.
already done it. You've already done
That's
it.
right.
It's just you're
I
just notifying
withdraw
us.
my motion.
All right. Okay. We'll move on to board
And-
policies.
And FYI, these will be under consent going forward.
Yeah, I was gonna
Just-
say, we
That
would
was
normally,
confusing.
for new board members, we do normally vote on each board matter item, so this should have been put under the consent agenda, so we'll catch that. I guess we should have caught that, maybe, I don't know. Is that on us? All right, I'll take the fall. Okay, okay, we'll move into, item B, board policies first read. Now, we do need to go through each one of these one by one, correct? We don't, we can do the whole thing together, okay?
Yeah, because we're not.
Okay,
voting.
great.
Oh, this is-
So,
this is
are some
first
of these
read.
final read, though?
Not on.
None of them are
You
final
already-
read.
The
They're
final
all
read-
first read. I
final
thought they were,
reads were under
okay,
consent.
Shannon's got something.
You had 3 that you approved in the consent agenda that were
Great, okay.
approved, but these are all first reads.
Okay. Did you have something on that? Great, okay. All right, could I have a motion to approve item B?
You don't.
No.
We don't
No,
have to
we're
approve it
not
all.
voting on them.
They're first
I do just want to ask a question about the first one, the 1.106. The word equal has been changed to equitable. I just don't understand why. I will seek to provide equal education opportunities, equitable. I'm not real sure.
Yeah.
Those words are kind of interchangeable. What is the point of changing the
So-
wording?
And again, it's up to the pleasure of the board, but the board adopted an equity policy about 1.5 years ago. And so to stay in line with the language of that policy, felt like it was appropriate to change that word. Again, these are all first read recommendations, y'all.
Okay.
I have a quick,
Yes, please, go ahead.
since this is first read and there seems to be some clarity needed around the words equality and equity, can you provide those to us? So just as a reminder to the board?
Yeah,
So
so,
they'll know why there's-
I mean, I think the easiest way and what we've done in the past to explain it is to use, if you remember, I almost said old board members, that's not appropriate.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
The former board.
New board members, are board members that have been on here for a little bit longer. We used a picture of, looks like kids standing to look over a baseball fence.
Right.
And equal basically was they're all standing on the same size stool, even though you've got, like me as the younger brother, I would have been the shortest. My middle brother could barely ever see, and our older brother could clearly see. That's equal. The analogy with the equitable is saying that, you know, the younger brother got a higher stool so you could see the baseball game. Middle brother got a little bit higher, you know, so he just needed to bid, and then the older brother could just stand on his own and see it. So it's basically, you know, when you think about equal and equitable, what we talk about in terms of an equitable school system is saying, we know kids are coming to us with different barriers. We know that kids are coming to us with different struggles, and you'll get used to me using my daughter a lot as an analogy, and I apologize, but my daughter comes with a lot less barriers than the majority of our kids. She's, you know, she's blessed, and so what she needs is not the same as what a student that is dealing with, you know, a significant disability or homelessness or poverty, or someone that's new to the country. And so it's showing a commitment as a school system that when we talk about equitable, we're saying we're supporting kids to remove barriers to help them be successful. That's probably not a great definition, but off the top of my head, as good as I can do.
Yes, for sure.
So, and I don't think it should be policy, but in addition, a lot of wording that you've been using as of late is personalized.
Yep.
And I think equitable, unfortunately, like every word on the planet, depends on your perspective, how you view it. But I'm not asking you to change that, but also start incorporating. I really like that word personalized, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that, you know, some students, if we personalize their education, their needs, we're going to meet them where they're at to get them where all of us can thrive. So I like that word. You've been using it a lot, and I appreciate that. It makes me feel better.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about any of the first read policies? Okay. I'm primarily asking that for the new board members, because this is the opportunity to really like dig in and ask. So, okay, great. Well, that's actually the end of our agenda. We have events and announcements. Friday, October 7th is the end of the first quarter. October 10th through 14th is fall break. Monday, October 17th, schools are closed for teacher professional development, no students. Thursday, October 20th, we will have our next board meeting, and we will start our work session at 4:30 and start our board meeting at 6 p.m. Does anyone have anything?
So I have, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Marco, go ahead.
So for me, this new structure that we're trying, I have a question on it, which is that we didn't really go through the agenda in our work session to discuss some of these things, and then because the time wasn't there, I agree. And then we also, to me, some of these amendments that were there, that I have this package that I don't know what it was, but I got it today. And I would have been I guess I may have voted on that, I don't know, but I would have been very uncomfortable voting on something that we didn't get a chance to discuss in a work session, and then I get a package on at the moment of the vote. So however we can, because I like the one day, I like that our staff can go home. I see too many staff here, but all that, but somehow that to me, as we improve on this, I would seek to improve on too, so that we have all the information we need by the time we get here.
So these are just the exhibits though, right?
Just what?
Like the additional supporting documentation to the agenda?
No, that's the new contracts, and if you'll look, there's a memo on the
That's what I'm
front
saying, there
that
was some
outlines.
things back there that outlined, like supporting
Yeah,
documentation.
but that's what I'm saying. So I show up and
So-
there's this, and I don't know.
Mr. Perez, Shannon Moody's going to come talk a little bit about the changes. I'm going to apologize for trying to put too much into this. We felt like the compensation study and the discussion about the wellness survey was needed. We are committing to one presentation that, like those three, our part was under 10 minutes each. We'll keep it under 10 minutes each, so we'll do better next month on
But
that.
I do want to state, we're not in a hurry, folks. We're talking about our students and their lives and their future and our community.
I
So
thought
I'm not rushing through this.
No, but we've got to be careful of cramming, and I think, to Ms. Robinson's points about the committees can be much more active than what they have been to dig into some of these issues and bring reports back to the major body. Shannon, can you talk about the
Yeah, the
changes?
red items, they were all my items, so I want to go ahead and say that as well. What we learned in this piece too, so they were all contracts that were on the original agenda, but Scott was able to review them for us and realized we were missing indemnity language that we really needed to have in the contract. So we worked after that was sent out to get that right language in the contract for Scott, and then got those updated versions to you. So they were all existing contracts in there, but with the updated language to make sure we were correct. And then the board policy, it was still a first read, but we knew there was a change we wanted you guys to see.
But
So
to be clear, that's precisely what I would have been uncomfortable voting for.
Sure.
I mean, I obviously voted, but I would be uncomfortable voting on changes that suddenly came the moment I arrived, and I haven't had a chance to process or think through it.
So-
And we
Understood.
can
Yeah.
discuss it in the work session.
Well, and so we would normally have received that printed packet on a Monday, right, during our, so if it's possible, because we're making this change, maybe we can get it emailed out to us, you know,
Any changes.
2 days, or any changes, like, you know, and then maybe we actually wouldn't even have to necessarily have it printed, but,
If we get it that early.
yeah, for sure. So, or if we can even get a notification of like, hey, this is coming your way.
absolutely, it would
that
be
way-
it would be process to not do that at all. I think
Yeah.
we're learning this process.
Yeah,
too, so
totally. We're just,
apologies.
we're flying
Yeah,
the ship as
thank
we
you.
build it, yeah.
Thank you all.
Great, and then Mrs.
Yeah,
Thurman.
yeah, one thing. We need to get a facilities thing going, a committee. I
Yes.
know we don't have anybody on the facilities committee yet, but we need, that's something that we definitely do need to meet and.
Yeah,
working on.
and to speak publicly about that, I've spoken to each of you privately. Mayor Wamp, I thought that it would have been already. I think you'll have an announcement. We'll have an announcement about a facilities working group to address it. But, you know, my conversation with Ms. Sermon, you guys need to be able to make some recommendations.
Yeah.
Ms. Robinson's gonna serve on that working group, but for you guys to be able to make some recommendations to her and I so we can take them there. Obviously, again, anything that comes out of that working group has to come back to you guys for approval, but she wanted to clarify, and it's a good point, that y'all need input to.
So at what point do we do that? Do we just tell, I mean, are we gonna have a meeting to
I think we
give her some
should.
idea?
I think what
we should
would
have
be
a-
helpful is if we
Yeah.
could, you know, maybe have a quick meeting before next board meeting.
No.
And maybe if it's,
Because I'd like to get some updates about where we are on time, or I'd like to get some updates about some other things, and then,
Could we have the meeting at the new CSLA as an
I haven't seen
opportunity
it.
to also see a view
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Not
which I
quite.
haven't
it's across the
seen
street
yet.
from me, that's fine.
it's not ready yet. Let's wait till like January, and it'll be really good.
That's fine.
But if we can
I'll
just have that.
put it together, maybe
Give
do it
Tiffany some
next
idea,
month.
you know,
Yes.
I just want to have some input of.
Yeah, so I'll get with Ms. Ford on a date for that, but we will have a facilities committee, even though there's a working group going on, and I hope that committee will be very active and send some bring some recommendations to the board for sure. So, okay, anything else? Anybody have anything else? All right, great. Thank you guys. Have a great night.